Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Electra's channel, building North America's first battery materials park. Forefronting the industry today, we have Chief Executive Officer Trent Mell. Welcome, sir.
Kyle, thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you, man. You guys are fronting a very intriguing industry in this current environment. So I want to break this down into parts. First and foremost, you're kind of building out a refinery to be an integral part of North America's battery supply chain. For newer investors, can you kind of just offer a brief elevator pitch and exactly what you guys are doing there?
Sure, yeah, pleasure. So if you think of us, Electra, think of the midstream of the supply chain, right? Between the minerals we need for electrification and all the EV assembly plants and the battery plants that we've been hearing about for the last 18 months that are being built across America and to some extent Canada. So in between that, you need to get the minerals out of the ground, you need to convert them into a usable form. And so best practice suggests you don't do each one in isolation, nickel over here and cobalt and battery. You got to bring them all in one industrial park. There's some synergies, better for the environment, lower costs. And so that's what we're doing is we're creating that first industrial complex for North America.
Now, where are you guys operating out of and what kind of markets are you trying to serve here? Because obviously this is a global problem. Are you focused in North America? What kind of mines are you kind of partnering with here? Just give us a little brief overview.
Yeah, so the supply chain we're in is much like the way the EV market has evolved, right? It was a China first approach to EVs in America, well, then it was Europe. And now you can see America's really playing catch up, right? And so our focus from day one was North America. We started looking at cobalt in particular, kind of the first leg of our strategy, because most of that comes out of the DRC, the Congo, and then most of that, 80% of that's then refined in China. And so the first leg of growth for us is to replace that Chinese hub with a North American hub. So we're operating just north of Toronto, hydroelectric power. So we've got a fantastic ESG story, critical minerals, an alternative to China. You check all these boxes, and the market we're serving is ultimately the EVs, the North American EVs that are going to be built here on the continent.
Yeah, and I feel like I could ask you dozens of questions because between, like you're mentioning, supply constraints, especially from the mining aspect of it, but we're going to come back and we're going to divulge farther into that. But I want to roll back a little bit here and get to know you because you have over 20 years of experience in international business to working with the likes of Barrick Gold. What kind of led to that aha moment that got you involved in kind of the battery metal space?
Yeah, I think it's it might sound a little corny. It's just wanting to do good, right? So I started my career as a merger and acquisitions lawyer in Toronto and one of the big national firms here. I did a lot of deals, and being in Canada, you do a lot of resource deals, right? If you're out west, you're doing oil and gas, and east, you're doing mining. And so that's how I landed into Barrick. Barrick, very acquisitive, so just a lot of transactions, and I just got an appreciation for building companies. And there's two ways to do it, right? You either buy or you build, and there's a right time to do both. So when Electra came along, and I went through a few iterations, a few different companies, a few different commodities. I've been in cobalt before and palladium. The startup scene was fascinating for me because you get to create some real value for the early shareholders. And so came in with this this view of mining. And not everybody loves mining, but we all appreciate if you like plumbing and electricity in your iPhones, you need mining, right? But this is more tangible for people. You understand the connection between fossil fuel transition to new energy because of the minerals we need. And so for me, I guess that was kind of the aha moment. It brought together skills that I had, company building, asset development, M&A early on. That's now behind us, with this idea of putting mining at the forefront of everybody's agenda as an important ingredient to a better world, effectively.
Yeah, and being in the refining business, I feel like you're almost deleveraging some of the risk. And I imagine the partnership potential is just exuberated right now, considering how many people are getting into these mining spaces. But can you speak on the team, perhaps, just some of the people working with you, helping you captain that ship?
Yeah, so our team, if you look at the management team, at inception, we grew it out of the mining sector and mineral process sector. And so for those of your viewers who understand, or I guess who are familiar with the mining space, Glencore predecessor company, Falconbridge, we got a couple of people out of that. Vale predecessor was Inco. We got people out of that ship, obviously myself at Barrick. So a lot of us have had experience building assets around the world. And why that's important, Kyle, is you run into a lot of issues, right? You've got 100 balls on the air at any given time. Supply chain, we're seeing it today. Cost pressures, you're seeing that today. People make businesses as well. There's so much downside opportunity to come into a project. So we went big on that front, but on the board side, mixed it up a little bit. I got the former governor of the state of Idaho on our board. I've got Susan Yuthu Kumar from Prologis, an ESG sustainability lead. We've got Henrik Fisker from Fisker Inc. was on our board. Now he's a special advisor. And so it's a brave new world, right? The intermediate phase stages that I'm at, it includes mining and includes the EV world. And to try to bridge that divide in a chemicals company, I think we've done a pretty good job with a small company. And as you point out, a lot of relationships. We're on the land of giants. So we're the startup that's talking to the biggest EVs. I won't name any one of them. You know who they are. They're chemical peers. Battery makers are of equal size. And so it's a fun environment. And now that we're moving very quickly to cash flow, people are taking us seriously. And we must have 30 confidentiality agreements with a lot of big players, for potential working relationships.
On that note, Trent, when we come back, I really want to divulge farther. Sitting in basically Canada, one of the most commodity-rich countries on the planet, right next to these major EV producers, and obviously the demand side of it's going to be very fascinating to discuss. But we're going to come back, fully deep dive down into that. But I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for coming out.
Likewise. Thanks so much.
And on that note, I want to pass the question off to you guys as well. Let us know what you think in that comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. Consider subscribing, because as news comes down the wire, we're going to continue to update you here and expand on this story. But stay cool, stay awesome. And as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.